Welcome to See Beneath Your Beautiful, where guests share stories of adversity and perseverance, which inspire, encourage, and challenge us. We embrace these tough conversations, intimately exploring our loves, fears, and hopes with a delicious combination of depth and lightness.
Let me start out by, first of all, Hera, saying thank you for the invitation. You had posted something on Facebook, and we've only met once or twice before when I lived out in Spokane and Coeur d'Alene for many years. So
yeah,
I immediately saw and said, hey, I know a guy. So here we are. And the long and short of it is I own a company called Mind Capture Group. Lived in the Spokane, Coeur d'Alene area for many years. Loved it there. I called it Narnia. And I moved back to the Midwest. My children are older now and had a relationship end. And I thought, you know what? We tried everything we could. So I came back in 2018. And right now, I'm really promoting a lot of live events again. And I host events all over the country. And right now, we're doing this interview. We're talking about a lot of things going on with the world. COVID is still in the forefront of our minds. We're all trying to figure out the last 2 years, what is normal, because it's not going back the way it used to be. And I'm the crazy guy that's trying to sell positive disruption during a pandemic.
Yeah.
No pressure, my friend. And we don't know each other as well as, we met a couple times, but so much has changed since I last saw you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank your audience for listening, because if anything, when someone listens to me teach live or do a podcast or a Zoom calls, I want them to leave not only feeling recharged, but they get one or two ideas, or they ask a different question like, wow, he really provoked me to look at life differently, because I see it not out of rose-colored glasses. I'm almost 50. I look at it from a pragmatic way of saying that I'd rather look at things positively each morning when I get up versus what's going wrong with the world. So it has been very difficult, I will tell you, Hera, to go on book tours the last couple of years and have it stop and start again. And then talk about, people call me the hope dealer, because the human nature is drawn towards the negative, unfortunately. And we're also sold in a lot of our media, and it's not my creation, that all things we're doing wrong.
Right.
There are a few of us that say, hey, it's not always perfect, but what did you do to push through?
Right.
And why I'm interested to do this interview, because it's a big time commitment for both of us, is you want to go deep. You want to know, all right, some adversities you've had. And I've had a ton of them. I've failed so many times, I might write a book about it. My favorite books, ironically, is called Failing Forward by John Maxwell. So to give a little credit to my mentors and heroes, they have failed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You might be in the valley right now, really struggling with your health or a family matter or a relationship issue. If you look at each day, one day at a time, I'm a former gambler addict, is we're taught one day at a time. That's difficult for me. I'm a driver, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, a trainer. I'm looking at deadlines and going on tours. So to stop, slow down, and have some serenity one day at a time was really difficult to learn, and do my best to practice each day, Hera.
Yeah. That's the goal of the podcast. Initially, I was taking photographs of women, and I did a series called See Me. I want these women to feel seen for who they are on the inside, not necessarily what they look like on the outside.
Okay.
And I found that through taking the photographs that people would tell me things that were hardships that they were going through.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe the third person I interviewed, this young girl who has been dealing with a mental health diagnosis that she's not on the other side of, which I didn't realize. She's very young. She's 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
I'm so glad I interviewed her, because I realized what the podcast should be, or what I can bring to the world with it, is people who have gone through things and are on the other side and can offer hope to her in particular. I think of her every episode because she was suicidal and still suicidal, and I had nothing to offer her. So one of the driving forces of this podcast is we've all dealt with something that we felt was traumatic or horrific, and we couldn't get through it. And yet I'm 54, and I know we do. I know that if you can take one day at a time, that tomorrow will be better. And so that is the goal of the podcast. So thank you for saying everything you said. And I can't wait to hear more about your story.
Well, you're very welcome. And when I did some research on your past guest, it's inspiring, because that's life in its full tapestry. It's not always the motivational memes that I post. It's not me traveling to work with a group. It's what's the work to get there? What's it like to be under deadline? What if you have a personal issue you're going through, or your family is, or your spouse, or your children? And we're both about the same age, Hera. Mm-hmm. And if you look at Father Time or Mother Nature gives us the gift of age and wisdom, but it's paid at a price.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all bad. And what's enjoyable to be able to talk about things we're going to dive into today is it paints the full picture.
Right.
See the finished product on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, but there's a whole lot of things people don't post.
Right.
I'm rolling my sleeves up here as we do this because it's fun to get down and remind myself that how far you've come.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a cocky perspective. It's to know that adversity could be lurking right around the corner again. We're a couple of years into the COVID pandemic. It's real. And how are we going to keep processing that we may have dodged it and all of a sudden someone next to us dies? I've had 2 friends die of it in the last 3 months. And it's really changed my perspective to get after it each day, even when I'm tired, even when I don't feel motivated. Yes, motivational speakers have bad days. You can't have too many of them, though, in a row. That's where I go to a therapist, a good friend, or I talk with my partner, and I can feel comfortable and safe because everyone thinks I'm perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You're always positive. I'm like, no, I'm not. That's the confessional. And another intrigue of the niche you're serving is give us the full picture.
And I really appreciate you telling me that because nobody's perfect. Nobody's positive 100% of the time. I haven't posted that I have COVID. It's not the full picture. So social media is a bit of a lie. Somebody once told me that they know everything about me because I post so much on social media. And I was just laughed. And I said, you only know what I've been feeding you.
I have to remember that might go to my future books. I will give you full credit and date it.
I have curated what I want you to know. And a lot of times I do tell my heart, but not always. This is how this came about, is that people were telling me their private thoughts and it was beautiful. And I was seeing them and hearing them and they were real and I was real. And there was a little bit of healing because they were talking about real stuff. And so that's the goal of the podcast is I want to hear the real stuff, but also I want to hear how great you are.
Never downplay the significance of your own life story and the positive lessons it can leave someone out. Mm-hmm. It's usually how I end when I do a live event or a Zoom training is I let the audience know, hey, each of you is a storyteller. It's not just me motivating. You're going to motivate someone this afternoon or tomorrow with a text or a phone call, a cup of coffee. And you don't always need a speaker there. Everyone can motivate each other by their life story. And it's fascinating that as you do what you do, this reminds me of an invite I got right before COVID to speak at a group called Failure Lab. Imagine TEDx, but opposite. TEDx is about motivation. Here's my story. Here's my 3 or 4 bullet points to improve your life. Failure Lab, I was picked to be a speaker, said we want 10 minutes unscripted of your biggest failure, but with no lessons learned. Oh. You tell your biggest failure and you walk off stage. And I thought, I have to unlearn everything I know as a speaker, being positive. I can't give them here the 3 lessons I learned from that failure. I have to be really raw, unrehearsed. I'm a professional speaker and go up there kind of like stand up without a net and tell my biggest failure, then walk off the stage. And what intrigued me was it's unique. Mm-hmm. They've done very, very well. At some point, I'm sure they'll give me an invitation once live events go back again. But they wanted me to tell one of my stories of failure that I wasn't comfortable with in a live setting. I just thought, no, I just at the time, I don't want to tell that story.
I love that concept.
Don't let anyone take your power, ever take your power to be positive, to go after your goal, your dream. And sometimes those people that try to take it are those closest to us. And some are no longer in our lives. We have to remove them. We distance ourselves. And I'm not trying to say get rid of all your family and friends, but you have to be very careful who is in your cheerleader club.
Right.
Because sometimes those closest to you have great intentions, quote unquote, but they don't want you to go too far. They want you to kind of stay the old hair of when she was 25, the Tony was 30 or 40. And it's hard when you're growing. And I know for me, my former partners have said, Tony, the challenge is you're always growing and evolving. It's hard to keep up with you.
Yeah.
And that's very honest, I think, critique and not a criticism. That I love to learn. I love to grow. I love people. Even days when people cut me off in traffic, I want to give them the bird, but sometimes I'll just wave at them and smile. I'm human as well. But when you are constantly evolving and growing, it's not out of arrogance. It's, I love people. You sometimes leave people behind or you freak them out. They don't know how to respond to change. Particularly the last 2 years, the amount of change at all levels of society has been beyond crazy. We all are dealing with sickness, depression, suicide, whole new work-life structure, and people call it work-life balance. That's been blown up like TNT. What does working from home look like part-time? How do we go back to the office? How do we deal with social distance, with vaccines and people being upset and all the confusion? I believe more than ever what you're doing with this podcast and the guests you've already brought on and who you're going to bring on, and today with you and I interfacing, it's critical. Because people are going, what do I do? Like CEOs of nonprofits, big companies, mid-sized companies that will tell me things in the office when they shut the door on a Zoom call that shock me. Everyone is struggling to figure out, what does this new normal look like? And what are we going to keep from the pre-COVID world? What are we going to keep that's going on right now? And how do we get a roadmap to go forward beyond this? Because at some point, the world will open up again, I believe. And there's going to be some damaging and some healing from that reopening. No one's got it all figured out. And we're all learn from each other and hopefully get along. The division right now in the world is crazy to watch. Everyone's fighting with each other. I'm like, families are fighting, bosses are fighting. I did a training this week for about 300 people. It was live. They had different groups of their team come in here in the Midwest. I said, we have to remember something. We may not always get along, but we're on the same team. We have to go back to the core basics. Human decency, communication. I believe that we're built for social connection, not distance. Humans, I believe, at the end of this global experiment, however you define it, we're going to be shown now even more we're built to connect.
Yeah.
It's been tough. I've got 3 children that are 24, 22, and 19. One's a nurse in the COVID unit. She works harder than anybody I know because she's watching people die and transition daily. It's like a triage in the military. And she's had to grow up at 24 years old working in an ER COVID floor. And I just go, wow, she doesn't know how to deal with it. My other daughter's a vet tech, 22. My son's 19. I look at what they've had to grow up with. What are they still trying to process that we as adults are trying to process? How are we going to keep it together? So I'm a big believer in, personal care, psychotherapy. If you need to go to a therapist, I think anyone over 30 should go to a therapist at least once a year. I've seen the positive effects of therapists. I've had a couple of bad ones. I've had divorces and children that have gone through it and partners and myself that have gone through it. But I think at least once a year is to talk to someone that just will even listen to you.
Right.
I think to go it alone right now with all the isolation still very prevalent is dangerous. We were built to work in tribes and with groups and units. And the unit has changed because of Zoom and COVID. But as we go back into somewhat of a new normal of working together in rooms and face-to-face and in person, we're going to have to relearn, like, okay, is it okay to shake someone's hand? Can I hug you? Can I say good morning, get close to you? Do you want me just to do a fist bump? And that may be several years. We have to respect each other.
I like that everybody's a teacher.
They are. It's tough is when you're going through a real challenge or like let's use a breakup, because everyone can pretty much relate to those. Unless you've been happily married 40 years. God, how did you do it? Write a book, share it. But kidding aside, the statistics is what 60% of people are going to get divorced. If you're not married yet, you've probably been through relationship breakup. We can all relate to that human heartbreak or disappointment. And I look at that and say, what was the lesson from the breakup that when I was going through it was brutal? I used to get so sick of people saying to me, well, it's going to be better. Give yourself a year. I'm like, I don't want to wait a year. I want to fix it now. But if you go back and you rewind, the human brain says, what were the 2 or 3 lessons I learned? So maybe it's a year later from that relationship that didn't work. Maybe they're happier, which is what you always want. I'm happier. What do I want to look for if I want to date again that I don't repeat that process? Albert Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I have had sometimes a decade where I did a lot of the same things over and over in my relationships until I went, that's not working. And it's not always their fault. Tony, you have to look in the mirror and go, what are the lessons I have to learn to become a better man? You can constantly learn. I often find that years later, the biggest missteps or initial setbacks are huge turning points.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee, I'm going to paraphrase one of his quotes, is life is your teacher. It's your constant teacher. And you're always learning from the ups and the downs. And what seems like a real bad tragedy, you might look back and go, thank God that happened the way it did.
One of my biggest life lessons was about a decade ago. And I was seeing a very older, wise woman. I was very upset. I had lent a man a lot of money and he wasn't paying me back, like $10,000, all my money.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I woke up pissed off. The first thing I thought of every morning was, mother effer, he owes me $10,000. And then she said to me, did he hold a gun to your head? And I was like, well, no, but there was no but ultimately. I lent him the money. It was my choice. And I took responsibility, and taking responsibility for that led to even rewinding, taking responsibility for everything that led me to that decision. And that changed my life, taking responsibility for everything I've ever done, everything I will ever do. Nobody's holding a gun to my head. And what a shocker. I felt righteous. I was right, but it didn't matter.
Well, let me thank you for that. I may use that at some point in the talk. I'll give you full credit. I love to learn from others, and they're giving me value and I'm giving them value back and forth. That's powerful because it's real.
Changed my life.
A lot of folks I see are still weighed down from something in their past. Mm-hmm. It's like they're carrying it. It's like, let that shit go.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do, but when you let it go and you give it a month or two or a year and you go, wow, I'm so much happier. I feel lighter. You just go, wow, how much time did I waste by not letting that go? And it's just weird how the human mind works. We heal at different levels.
Yeah.
And it has that unique life story, which always fascinates me is, I'm like, what is your story? So a lot of times I'll meet somebody. I don't care if they're the CEO, the VP, the brand new employee I'm working with in a train. I go, so what's your story? Like, why are you here? What brought you to this company? Mm-hmm. Not just, oh, I need the money. No, what attracted you to it? And then they start to tell me their story. I look at the next generations of my kids as I don't think they quite see, because they're younger, the value of the wisdom of those that are, 30 or 40 years down the road. You look at a lot of the Asian cultures, they revere their elders.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that have the knowledge, the patience, the discernment. We need their wisdom, particularly in the West. We just got, they're outdated, they're retired. You old man, you old woman, you don't know how to work a damn cell phone. Yeah, just go retire. Wait a minute. They've made it that far. That's a gift. And I bet they've been through a lot of things you have. Even though technology changes, human nature doesn't. A lot of the people I've been drawn to in my business career are 20 or 30 years older than me. I'm looking at my bookshelf here right now, and half those authors are much older than me chronologically. But I can pull a book off a shelf and pick someone's brain of 30 years for about $10 or $15. That's the biggest steal on the planet as an author and a writer. If someone gifts you their knowledge in a book or a podcast or an interview like we're doing.
I totally agree with you that I have a 26 and a 22-year-old and they don't respect their elders. But also, I just want to add that they don't have to be 30 years older for us to learn from them either. My kids have taught me so much. I learn from them every day. So I don't think they have to be older, but I do think it would be nice if we did respect what our elders have to teach us, because it's a lifetime of wisdom. They've made it. I can't believe I made it to 54. My mother passed away at 46, and every day, every year is just amazing. So amazing.
This is not an accident. I call it a God wink moment right now. The coffee shop this morning where I go right, gal was sitting next to me. She's in her 30s. I'm in, 49 right now. And something had come up about age and drive and how do you do what you do. And I said, well, my dad passed away at 46 years old.
Oh.
I'll be 50 this year. And right. I look at every year and I go, oh my God, I made it. How do I honor not just my father, but my clients, my children, my partner, my friends that have passed away? How do I honor them? Get after it. Get after it every day, because it doesn't mean I'm on like bonus time, like the Grim Reapers follow me. But what the last 2 years taught us is we don't know when the number's going to get called. I had 2 friends die in the last 3 months from COVID.
Right.
Damn it. They were my age. I can't believe they're gone. I had a conversation with my daughter, Paige, who's the nurse. She's 24, works in ER COVID unit. And I really listened to her over that cup of coffee. And I just was blown away how wise my 24-year-old daughter was, that she's dealing with death every single day when she goes to work. And she works for 2 hospitals. One is in the ER of a COVID unit, emergency. And the other one's a big mental health facility here in the Midwest. So my daughter at 24 has more life skill, patience, grace than most 80-year-olds, because she's literally working in the front lines of a pandemic.
Right.
And she's the last person a lot of people see. She has to calm them down. A lot of them transition right in front of her. she's going to therapists right now because I can't imagine being 24 and watching people die every day on your shift.
Right.
A lot of people can't be with them. So she's the last point of impression these people have before they cross over and die.
Right.
I look at that and go, wow, I have an even more greater respect, not just for those on the front line that are helping people, but my daughter had to grow up at 23.
I think that's the whole point when you were saying you ask the CEO, whoever it is, what's your story? I think it doesn't matter how old we are, what our station is. Everybody has a story. Everybody deserves to be heard. Ultimately, I feel like everybody has a lesson to teach. Our human desire is to be seen and heard. And the more we can respect each other, like you're saying, across the board, respect each other and our differences, the world will make it because we're on the same team, like you said.
Let me go back to something you just said. I think it's very powerful. And I believe it. You're 100% right. Everybody wants to be seen, but more importantly, heard.
Mm-hmm.
So many people don't get any kudos walking around each day of, hey, that's a nice tie. Hey, those are great shoes you have on, ma'am. Hey, thanks for giving me that cup of coffee. A little genuine compliment. Some people don't get it for months.
Right.
Years. And I think we tend to forget because our mind is so bombarded with information. A lot of my forte the first decade was talk about the battle of attention or mind capture. In a given day in North America, you're hit with 5,000 to 7,000 ads. They're all over the place around you, billboards, pop-ups on your phone, your Zoom. Everyone's wanting to say, look at me, look at me, look at me. These advertisers, nothing wrong with advertisers, but it's like a mental battle. Then when you wake up typically in the morning till the time you go to bed, you have about 50,000 plus self-talk conversations. We're in an attention battle or an attention war. So is it any wonder people are so busy trying to keep track of their own mental chatter, the noise, that they very rarely stop and focus on someone else. So the biggest gifts I say are two things: giving people the gift of your time and converting them giving you time, and the gift of attention to be able to focus and listen. I used to not listen real well at all here.
Same.
I was impatient. Go, 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 go. And I said, oh, that's a battle cry of who I am. I'm an ape-type personality. I'm a go, go, go. But I was an ass.
I think for myself too, my biggest compliment is when somebody says I'm a good listener, because it wasn't always true.
It's hard. If we can really listen better, if we can look at people eye to eye and really let them know that we are present with them and we're hearing them, that is the biggest gift, I think, in all the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Watch social media, TikTok, for example, and Snapchat. It's more of a dominant under 30 media, but you're seeing these kids and even more adults getting it. All they're doing is looking for attention, Hera. They post the videos. I'm like, wow, not for me, but boy, they are really looking for attention.
Mm-hmm.
Not for me to judge. I hope that people pay attention to my social media. That's how we get the message out. The challenge is flipping it back around and say, does someone need me to really listen to them today? Or to give them a genuine compliment? Because when I get one, I'm like, wow, well, thank you. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel better. And I think there's nothing wrong with being positive, but it's not easy. Going negative, being sarcastic and dark energy is super easy to do. There are millions of acts of kindness every minute, every hour on the planet we almost never talk about unless we share it. People call me motivational speaker. I used to get really offended. I'm like, I don't do that. I'm more of an inspirational guy, a hope dealer, because I can't change anybody here. Okay, try changing people. That's tough enough. Changing yourself.
Is that the difference between inspiration and motivation?
Yeah, it's really to have them go, oh, I can relate to him.
Okay.
You know what? I never thought of it that way. Or you know what? I disagree, but he's got me thinking different.
Mm-hmm.
Light the match, like the old Mission Impossible theme with the burning wick. Mm-hmm. And I want to go, that guy snapped me out of the old pattern. And if I do it from a positive perception in a slant, that's my favorite way to do it. This happened this week. We had about 100 people in each session, and about 10 or 15 come in. They're like, their arms are folded. They're looking down. I can tell they're not paying attention. And I'll say, yeah, some of you right now, take a look, everybody, look up here. And everyone will look like, what's he going to do? And I'll say, some of you are like sitting here with your arms folded. You got grumpy faces. You know what? You may not like me the next hour. I don't really care. But if I make you upset and I get you to think a little differently, I've done my job. And all this, the critics pop up like, who the hell is this guy? So it's really designed to say, you're going to be stuck in a room with me for an hour. I'm going to probably annoy you, but at least I've warned you what to expect. And there might be something of value in this next hour. or an idea that you generate because of something I said or a picture or a story, then I've done it. And I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to just positively disrupt you.
Mm-hmm.
And I the grumpy old 50-year veterans walk up and go, yeah, I don't really want to hear this motivation shit. But, you got a couple good points there. I'm like, good. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And there might be 10% of a given audience on a Zoom call or a live training that doesn't like me no matter what. And I cannot let them hurt my ability to teach.
Right.
I just am never going to convert them. I just go, okay. I look at them and smile, or I'll kind of wave to them. They're like, he's reading me and he's a jerk. I'm like, I don't care. But the 90% that are open and receptive to inspiration, that's why the company or the organization will bring me on. I'm at 1,750 days without a bet. I'm a former compulsive gambler. Keyword, former. I don't like to hold on to the fact that I'm a compulsive gambler because I haven't bet in almost 5 years. Mm-hmm. It's only a moment or a day where I could break that.
Right.
I go to Las Vegas next week to speak, and I'm on the road, and I'm speaking casinos. I don't get cocky to think that old vice of the urge could come back, and I end up at a blackjack table. One day at a time is to work towards not doing that. Failure Lab, the group that wanted me to share a failure, wanted me to tell the story of how I revealed I was a gambler. I asked for help. It blew a relationship up. Actually in Coeur d'Alene, it didn't make it. That's why I moved back to Michigan. We tried to make it work, but I got into 12-step. We both changed. She forgave me. I made amends with her, but 13 months separated, I went back to the Midwest. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's fact. A lot of people in my circle know it. There's nothing to hide. Where I struggle with telling the story is I don't want people to know and think that that's only who I am. I don't need to be boxed in as that former gambler guy, only telling the gambling story for attention or to sell books. Also, my mom and my children and my current partner in the audience, what would they think of that? I don't want them to keep reliving the pain in the live audience. I don't want to tell that story. And I thank God I have the right and the boundary to say, no, I'm not going to tell that story. I've already lived that pain. I don't want to stay in that pain. And I know as a speaker and an event planner now, I have a lot of speakers I bring into my events, and I see them at events as well. Some of them are telling the same story with the same fake tears 20 years ago. That is taking advantage of people.
Yeah.
And I usually sniff it out. So I'm not saying to contradict, you can't share your story, but what is the takeaway from it? They should be able to see by your actions you've changed. Live your change. Live your sobriety. Witness to people by getting them to a meeting privately. It doesn't always have to be for show. And that's one thing I want to recommend to particularly the demographic under 30. You don't have to document everything in life. Pray on it, sleep on it, meditate on it. Ask a person in your group for advice or your peer group. Is that worth sharing right now? Everyone wants to share everything right now. I'm not saying curb your enthusiasm, but it's having discretion here.
Mm-hmm. I understand. But since you brought it up, though, how did you recover, or are you recovering? How'd you stop?
I hit a wall. I had just literally got tired of lying near the end. Mm-hmm. I remember the day, it was April 10th, 2017, midnight on the marker. I just looked up at the sky. I was in bed. I said, I'm done, God. I surrender. Take me. Next morning, I told my partner, I think I have a gambling problem. And 6 days later, I was in, an AA meeting and then to a GA meeting a couple of days later. So I'd hit a rock bottom wall where I said, I've got to stop doing this.
Yeah.
When I did that, I went all in, no pun intended, as a former gambler. And I just said, I'm ready to change. And I did not know how much change it would involve. And many other relationships changed. Some got stronger and some had to be ended because I started to get clearer. I realized, boy, I was not this great motivational guy I thought I was. I was very controlling and insecure, maybe codependent in some respects. And I was running from years and years of pain. And near the end with the gambling, where it got really out of control, I said, something's not firing right in my brain here. I have to get help.
Okay.
That was really hitting the rock bottom point. And I think what helped to move forward was going to meetings. I had a sponsor that was a mentor that was sober for many years from gambling. Yeah, he was kind of, real soft-spoken, a little bit more mature, kind of funny. And I just realized it's okay to get help. There's nothing embarrassing about it. What would be embarrassing is to keep lying, acting like a fraud. And the first few months when it came out, I was mortified because my whole family's huge. They had to find out within a couple of weeks. Everyone in Coeur d'Alene pretty much knew what happened because it's a small community. It got around like in faster than Twitter. And there was a lot of shame I carried the first few months because I got kicked out of the house. And it was like, what's going on with Tony? And he's a successful writer. And what's going on? He's, I had a lot of demons to get out of my head because I was super embarrassed.
Yeah, I understand.
I feel horrible. I can still feel the pain of telling a partner in my family I have an issue. And it's okay to get better. But if I keep doing it or I was still gambling, big no. So there's different little games I play in my mind if I feel an urge that says, remember how far you've come. And what would children think if they saw you at a blackjack table? You just have to use little things in your mind to keep you, because addiction's at every turn, Hera.
I was addicted to gambling for a bit. I have a Macintosh. This is how bad. I was at work. I have a Macintosh, but if you had a PC, you could gamble online. And so I had software to make my Mac into a PC so I could gamble while I was working.
Yeah.
I don't gamble because I obviously like it way too much. And also my grandfather, who I never met, committed suicide over gambling debts. My dad never gambled. It was his dad. I see that it's genetic and I have it.
My son smokes and killed my father at 46 with lung cancer.
My mom too, and my daughter smokes.
Yep. 2 or 3 packs a day. And I look at him sometimes when he smoke and I go, Braden, I love you, but okay, this is my test. Because who am I to judge him? And he said, well, Dad used to gamble.
Yeah.
He's really, really got me to think, what's the growth lesson, his freedom and his free will that I can't control him as a young man, but I could say, I still love you. It may disappoint me that you have that habit, but I love you no matter what. And I hope you stop. Because who am I to tell him now he's a young man? So you can't do that. He'd go, Dad used to gamble. I'd be like, yeah, you called me out on that one. I may bring up in some talks, I'm a former gambler and I keep moving. Some talks I bring, sometimes I don't. And some people might go, oh my gosh, maybe I have a gambling problem. I don't know. Maybe I'll check out a meeting. Maybe I need to rethink that. And that warning or that little subtle mention of where I've been at and where I've come, they might go, maybe I need to check into something, or look at AA. I've been drinking more than a couple bottles of wine a week. It's 2 or 3 bottles every day or two. Instead of a drink or two, it's become 4 or 5 cocktails, especially during lockdown. What I think has taught me, and I'm grateful to God on many fronts for this life, is that we're all human. Everyone's carrying around crosses and they're fighting battles you would never imagine.
Right.
I've interviewed successful people back and forth, and I think everyone's successful because they have these gifts. But we've got to stop judging each other and go, well, hey, and it's hard because we judge each other all the time. Being more empathetic and more understanding to know that you don't have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. And it's interesting when I'm doing trainings with companies is I try to get them within the first 10 minutes to go, look, we're on the same team here.
Right.
It doesn't matter what your title is. If you're the quarterback of the team or the lineman or the ball boy or the ball girl, we're all trying to help the customer do our jobs more effectively and win as a team. Doesn't mean we're all perfect. We're all trying to figure this thing called life out and do it, I would say, with more fun. I'm the hope dealer, a little bit more enthusiasm, and we're trying to do it better.
Person I spoke to recently, 2 episodes ago, she had 3 surgeries a year for 3 years in a row. And she considers a successful day feeling well and getting out of bed. I just want to put that out there too, that success at any level, today, that's her milestone. And 10 years ago, she was saying it was something completely different. She had a beautiful home and now doesn't have a home, and getting out of bed is the goal. And so I just think it's really important to remember that we all are fighting our battles.
To look at 50 this year coming up, it's the second half. Lord, I hope you give me plenty more years where I remember when I'm healthy to enjoy them. How do I want to design that second half? And you design the life. It's you script one day at a time, then a week, then a month, then a year. Those are time progressions to see progress or where we need to improve. And right now I feel like, okay, I finally figured out it's okay to have the autonomy. I'm designing a life that I feel comfortable with at 50. Now that my youngest is down in Arizona, my son, he's off to school. What's next? So that autonomy to design it. It's fun because something I mentioned to a lot of my close friends and my girlfriend, Linda, my partner, I mentioned a partner, her name is Linda, is we both laugh and she's the same age. I go, look, it's nice to have no drama in this relationship. And we both pride ourselves, not to get cocky, that we haven't really in over a year had any major disagreements. We know it's coming. We're like, when's the big argument going to happen? but we both are at a point in life with our past experiences. We're both like, is it nice to have no drama?
Same with my husband. We're both 54 and we've both been married before, and we've been together almost 8 years, and we have had maybe 2 little fights. We are drama free. We just are appreciative of each other. And it can be that. I think 50 is a beautiful thing. When you're younger and people say, oh, 50 is so great. And you're like, you have to say that because you're over 50. But now I get it.
I appreciate that optimism. I'm going to be right there soon. 7 months.
No, 50 is great. You just do all the things you're saying, autonomy, but also you just give less of a fuck of whatever people think.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Hera. Take the wheel. I'm used to past relationships where there was drama, and I caused a lot of it too. It wasn't just my partners.
Right.
I've just opportunity. And I go, wow, it's nice to not have as much drama. And how do you want to structure? Who do you want to influence? What's your mission? And how do you want to live the next few years if you're granted those with more joy because you made it versus all those earlier lessons? I wouldn't want to be a teenager again.
Oh, no.
The new pressures, I'm like, I've been there, done it. I've closed that chapter in the book. I'm in my 50s soon. Thank you, Jesus. I made it.
Right. I don't want to be even in my 40s. It was hard too. Everything was hard. It's all hard, but it's all awesome. And if you take responsibility, it's all your choices. You get to script it. Even if something bad happened to you, your mind has the ability to say, I don't have to live there.
When your life reel plays back, let's say 40 years from now, you pass away, you have the Titanic deathbed scene where you're aged gracefully and you're in your 90s, all your photos are around, your kids and your grandkids are there, Hera. Is when you pass and transition, I believe there's going to be a replay. It's going to be that visual recap of maybe a minute or two. I want that reel. If I had that type of passage in 30 or 40 years, a deathbed moment, where I look back and that reel has got a lot of fun stuff and a lot of highlights. And I can say, you know, my last breath, take the transition out, let go. What a dynamic and fun ride. You took as much juice and energy and you gave and you gave and you took and you took and you experienced life in all its full technicolor at a deep, deep level, and you squeezed it full, exit now. And I hope those pictures will show, if it's 5 years from now or 20 or 30, that, man, I didn't leave anything there to chance. I went after it. A lot of what people pay me for, secretly, newsflash, I'm in the regret management business. CEO says, like, I don't want to have regrets about my company. I want my employees to feel like their job satisfaction's here, that we didn't waste their time, that they feel good doing what they're doing, is to help manage regret. I have coaches that kick my ass just to make sure I do what I'm supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't leave as many regrets if I'm allowed a long life. Like my father wasn't. He was a young man, 46. But if I get there, I go, man, you did it. You lived that dash, that birth date to death date with full intensity, maximum technicolor feel. And you can go, oh, okay, time to move on.
Thanks for your ratings and reviews. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Stay tuned.
Isn't it Hera or Hara? I hope I didn't mess it up.
It doesn't matter, but it's Hara, like happy and hat.
Yeah, Hera. Okay.
Everybody on the West Coast, which is where I live.
Hara.
It's horrible.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Well, I hope I got it right. And I was conscious of it too. I was like, oh shit, this isn't a no-brainer. I don't know.